Chris Williams. What's up, man?
Joe, good to see you, man. I'm looking forward to this,
Yeah,
especially because we'll get into a second, but this is like the best icebreaker I've ever seen. So kudos to you for coming up with it.
love it, love it. Just trying to gain some weight over here on camera. So we
Uh,
got a fun little time together. Meeting Chris, who's CEO of System 6 here. We're going to be talking a little bit about his childhood and favorite childhood snack. Talk through a bit of his journey of acquiring System 6, growing System 6, and now into acquiring other businesses into the portfolio. Really exciting stuff. But first things first, let's kick things off, Chris, with your childhood favorite snack.
awesome. This is a complete blast for the past for me. It's been years since I've had one of these, but we're gonna be eating super pretzels today.
Double baby.
Many of you may remember these. They are, frozen Bavarian pretzels. I wouldn't say they're, full Bavarian like you'd get if you were in Germany in October, but for me, it was like literally, I think every day, like definitely middle school, lower school, like coming back after soccer or whatever. And it was like, I've always been a salt guy, not a sweet guy. And I just like can vividly remember taking them out of the fridge, left side, put it in the microwave over in the corner, like little paper plate, dunk it in salt, eat the salt that fell off at the end. Usually like go sit down and watch like SportsCenter or something with this pretzel.
Love it, love it.
I literally haven't had one in years, and I'm excited to get back into it with you. So very vivid memories for me.
Dude, killer. I don't know if I've ever had it, but I remember being a kid and like seeing these in the frozen like section.
Yeah,
So it sticks out like a sore thumb in a good way. You're like,
yeah.
there it is.
And I like we live across the street from like a like specialty grocery store, and I like went out of my way to go to Safeway so I could get the like
Love
OG.
it.
Like I don't want organic. I
That's
don't
right.
want
That's
healthy.
right.
This is meant to be like
Yeah.
uh, a snack, not a health break.
Yeah. Heck yeah. I also noticed like I got this thinking like, wow, they'd be like huge, but it's like actually like
Yeah,
drawn
no,
to
it's like
scale.
a couple bites, like you might get hooked. Watch out, your kids might get hooked.
I got a whole pack in there. Also, the question I had for you, Chris, is the nifty little salt packet they give you.
Yeah.
How much salt, do you put on this thing?
So it's tough because so mine is like, I don't know,
Okay. Yeah.
salty, but then there's a lot that always spills out onto the plate.
Okay.
So I don't know if we'll lick the plate on camera, but when I was 6, I definitely did that.
Right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
You gotta put some water on it
Yeah.
to make
The
the
whole.
salt stick. That's the
This,
trick.
this is a whole.
Yeah, you can rub some water with your hand, exactly. But I mean, I'm a salt guy, so uh, it was usually like the last. Very often as a kid, the last one we'd like be using regular salt because I'd already extinguished the salt packet. So yeah, you salted
There
real
we go.
good, like get it going.
All right, I'm gonna take my first bite of a super pretzel here. Do you dip it
Uh,
in like cheese or mustard or anything? You just
a
straight
lot of
salt?
people do. I'm kind of like most of my salt stuff. It's just like I really like the salt, and so I just keep it authentic, keep it straight up.
Oh man,
Mm.
there it is.
It's simple. Salt and bread. Um, after you use soccer or whatever, you got to make sure you get some salt back in your system.
That's right,
You're
man.
out there sweating,
Electrolytes,
rolling around in the dirt, so it's got some health to it.
dude.
Um,
Love it.
but then yeah, the pro move is you rip some of it off, and then you like dip it on the plate to pick up salt. So see, I've got this guy. I've got
Oh yeah,
salt on both sides. Um, that's how
good.
you really make sure you get. Yeah, what's the serving?
It's not
Yeah,
bad. Not
one
bad.
pretzel has 40% of your daily sodium value, and I'm definitely trying to get above that. So
That's right. I used about half a bag of that salt, so it's probably even more than
no,
that.
you're well north of 200%, but
There we go. There we
it's
go.
a good for you.
Solid, man. We gotta flip on some Sports Center and
Mm.
turn on some video games and just call it a day.
Throw some grape. I would usually have some grapes to mix in with the salt. So I'm gonna have to start buying these again. They're really good.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, we chew on this delicious
Yeah,
pretzel.
we'll
Love to
replace
hear,
the.
man, from your journey from a search fund to finding System 6, acquiring System 6.
Yeah,
Seems like just the team responded really well the last 3 years. I think you guys have nearly doubled or more than doubled
Close to doubled,
Like,
yeah, plus or minus.
yeah,
We'll round up for the soundbite for sure.
there you go. More than double.
um,
But yeah, tell me what it was like, making that first acquisition, meeting the team, like learning from them, you teaching them, like it's kind of a unique thing to come not from industry into industry, and then
yeah,
System 6 is one of the top brands out there, so super impressive.
yeah. I mean, lucky to have been able to have a chance to buy it, and feel really fortunate that I ended up here. So kudos to you and everybody else that in Carbon that has played a role in System 6 getting to where it was when I got there in 2021. But yeah, I mean, I think one of my big lessons on like, hey, how have we been able to be, knock on wood, decently successful over the last couple of years is first, like, you got to start from a place of strength. And I think that means like buy a decent business. Like, I think as we know right now, there's a ton of accounting firms in the market. It's super hot. Lots of buyers out there chasing after deals. And I think it's important, like, to buy an accounting firm. Look, it's not going to be perfect. Nothing's perfect, but buy something that's already done some of the work of becoming a good modern firm, whether it's their pricing structure or their tech stack. Like, that's been a big part of our success is, I didn't have to come in and make a bunch of changes that are really hard to execute. Like, I didn't have to modernize the team and get them off desktop, to QuickBooks Online. I didn't have to, we weren't transitioning from an in-office to a remote culture. That was already built. So as much as the people out there can, like, finding a place that's starting in a good position. Getting here, I think, I really tried to spend time out of the gate, just like not making any changes, listening to the team. Like, in the first couple of weeks, met with everybody on Zoom and was like, what's good? What do you like here? What do you wish was a little bit different? And there were some small things out of the gate we could tweak, and we did that. And then also heard the things that were very important to people that we made sure not to change. A large part of our growth has come from focusing on bigger businesses. So we've been increasing the size of the customers that we've been bringing on, more services for them. So not just bookkeeping, making sure we're doing their payroll, their bill pay, some of their invoicing. So, we still bring kind of 30 to 40 clients on a year, and that's what it was when I bought it, but they're just a lot bigger, and so that's helped us,
Okay.
Increase revenue along the way. And then I think we sort of, when I bought the business, our niche, so to speak, was a lot of Seattle, where we're headquartered, and sort of the previous owner, Jeremy, great guy, kind of his professional network of early stage entrepreneurs, a lot of people coming out of EO and those types of groups. We've moved primarily because it's my network towards a lot of folks buying small businesses. So that's bigger, they're buying larger businesses. And it's also like a niche where almost everyone needs a new bookkeeper. So it just kind of like, it feels like every at bat we take in marketing or in networking, yields people who really need our services. So I think it's like focusing on a niche where there's a lot of people that need what you do and that also are often looking to make a change. Every business needs good bookkeeping, but a lot of businesses, have their bookkeeper who's fine. But the point is, a lot of our clients just bought their business, so that often just forces a change in bookkeeper because often the owner was doing it or the owner's spouse, and they're not there anymore. So size of business and the niche we've selected or focused on, I think has helped us with a lot of our growth.
Yeah, that's solid. Yeah, I love it. And then, yeah, I mean, even watching from afar, but also nearly, just from a carbon partnership perspective, like just seeing the team's response to more or less a brand new leader coming in. I think from talking to that team, I think you've done a lot of things well with just listening to who was there before and understanding the client base and the team, and I think that just does wonders for the team. And I think
Yeah. And I think, especially for buyers who are, maybe coming in without accounting backgrounds, it's like you have to earn kind of some trust and ability to make decisions. Like, just because you have a name on your email signature doesn't mean like you really are the top dog. And I feel like I spent a lot of time out of the gate just trying to listen. Hey, what could be better? Where can I jump in? Like, what can I take off your plate?
love it.
And then sales, like, where could I add value initially? It was like, hey, let me see if I can bring in more customers. And I think that helped earn trust and respect from the team, because it was like I was adding value and being useful. It wasn't going to be in QuickBooks because that's not my skill set, but let me see if I can do something else to help the team. And then, through that, they start to build some trust and, hopefully enjoy working with you.
Yeah, love it, man. Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, I think it's very impressive just, carrying on the legacy that had been there
Yeah.
and listening to the team and more or less like doubling down on what they were already doing well. And you've seen, doubling effect in 3 years, which is pretty crazy on not a tiny business to start with. I think you've got 40 or
Yeah. I
so
mean,
employees now.
it's not all me, certainly, you have to have the people on board for that growth and for that people have had to change a little bit, stretch what they're doing. Um, but I think what we've tried to do, and doubling down kind of on what was here when I got here, was like the mission is like, let's be a great place to work.
Yeah.
You know, More directly, like our goal, we want to be the best place to work in remote accounting. And, when you help people understand that, hey, growing can make it a better place to work because we're going to be bigger, more opportunities for folks, hopefully over time we can get some better healthcare we can offer, stuff like that. That, I think enables people to want to get on board for the ride. But
Yep.
you have to make sure people are supportive of it, because you can't do it all yourself. And if you try and force people to do stuff they don't want to do, we're a people business. Like, if our people start walking out the door, we're screwed. So it has to be something that people want to do.
Yeah, that's right. Love it, man. Love it. So looking ahead, like last 3 years doubled. As you look down the next 3 years, 6 years, 10 years, you know, System 6 has primarily been, bookkeeping, financial advisory, payroll, bill pay. What do you want to get into next from like a services perspective or even just growth strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all comes back to, look, certainly I have some financial metrics I want us to hit over a period of time, but like everything we want to be doing still needs to come back to, hey, we want to make this a better place to work for remote accountants. And, what that means is we want to be getting bigger and also building a firm that, can better serve its clients, which then ultimately means the clients are going to stick around longer, they're going to pay us more over time, and then that comes back to our team through, less change of clients, better compensation through more profitability, et cetera. So that's kind of the why behind wanting to continue to grow. I also, if you're not growing, you're dying. I kind of believe that a little bit.
Yep.
And then, okay, so today we do, day-to-day finance operations, like you said, but what else are the things that our clients could benefit from us doing for them to make it a better relationship, to make it a little stickier? Tax is the very first obvious one. We get clients all the time asking us if we can do their taxes. We refer them out to great firms right now, but if we are doing their taxes, that's going to extend the customer relationship. It'll also help us win more on inbound. We lose prospects to all-in-one firms where they can do the tax and the bookkeeping.
Yep.
And then the third thing that I didn't expect on why we want to buy a tax firm is like, we've heard from our team, like it's a pain in the butt sometimes going back and forth with third-party CPAs.
Yep.
Everyone's busy. There's always some tension around who's supposed to own this. And they're just like, if we could own all that internally, it would make for our client leads just a more easy end-of-year experience. So again, like, hey, owning tax in-house will actually just make System 6 a better place to work on the bookkeeping side. The immediate thing we're working on is hopefully trying to, acquire tax services. Continue to look at bookkeeping acquisitions as well. I think that kind of takes us from where we are today to doubling again in a couple of years, hopefully. And then the long-term vision is like, we want to be one-stop shop. So CFO more aggressively, maybe HR consulting, wealth management, insurance, but that's like super ambitious down the road. Like, let's get the basics done first, which is get tax in-house and keep growing our bookkeeping practice.
Love it, man. Yeah, that's super cool. I think having the all-in-one solution is pretty sick, and I think in a lot of ways too, like, not that you've been there, done that, got the T-shirt in all ways, but like, hey, you sort of have done it and proven a model for how to acquire a team and clients graciously and do it well, and so a little bit of that confidence going into if a tax shop is the next acquisition, like a bit of a blueprint to follow, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and we've had some conversations with folks, haven't landed anything. I would say, as we've gotten bigger, I now have more time to spend on this, so we're going to hopefully be spending more time on acquisitions. The marketplace is a big part of that, but
Yeah.
yeah, it is helpful to be able to say, look, we've gone through an acquisition before. 3 years later, look how much of the team is still here. Look how many of the clients are still here. So that'll be a big part of our story, with potential sellers is, it's not we haven't done this 20 times, but, I've been through it before, and certainly I think we're in it for the right reasons. We're going to be here for a long time. So um, the experience should help for sure in the conversations.
Yeah, love it, love it. That's a great segue into, as you think through the future and acquisitions and even just, the state of the industry. Some people would say it looks bleak. Like we see aging
Yeah.
demographic of CPAs, we see graduation rates of accounting is dropping. There looks to be headwinds. I think there's opportunity there. Small
Totally.
businesses continue to be added, at least in the U.S. market. They need good accounting. We've seen some of the larger AI type players just not doing a great job on the service end. I think there's a place for those types of firms, but for a firm like System Six, that's more highly relational.
Yeah.
Like I think there's still blue ocean out there. Would love to hear from your perspective, like as you're making that acquisition and as private equity is starting to enter the space even more, what makes System Six stand out in your eyes, or what advice might you have to a seller that wants to have the kind of exit that
Yeah.
System
Yeah. I
Six?
mean, I think a couple things there. I mean, I think also I'm an optimistic person by nature. Like sometimes maybe too much, but like I agree with your take. Yeah, there's some headwinds, but there's also opportunity in that. So, I'm in rooms sometimes with other accounting firm owners. I just like want to take a second to remind everybody. It's like we provide a very important service. It's a really good revenue model. Like it can be a profitable business if you kind of set it up the right way. Um, it's and it's fun because you're supporting small businesses that are the backbone of jobs and
Mm-hmm.
cool stories. So just like, yes, there are headwinds, but hey, if you build a good culture, then you're going to get the talent that does remain, and then you're going to have the ability to charge more for it because there's less supply in the market of good accountants. So the people who need it, which isn't going away, are going to pay more for it. And yes, there's AI coming, but like that's leverage for a few years. So a quick aside of like, yes, there's headwinds. Every industry has headwinds, but I think there's a lot that's still important and good in this space. I think kind of what makes us different as a buyer, like we said a little bit earlier, we've been through this before. So we can put a potential seller in touch with Jeremy who sold System 6 or early employees here, and they can learn more about how that was. I think it's also important, especially with private equity, like we're in this for the long haul, and generally private equity, nothing against this. I used to work in private equity, but they're in a 3 to 5 to 7 year cycle where they're gonna sell whatever they're buying to somebody else a few years down the line. Like structurally, they need to do that. I'm young. Like my partners and I are thinking in decades, and I truly want to be running System 6, and it's going to be get broader over time. But yeah, that's my career. This is not something where we're going to sell your firm again in 3 years and your team has to go through another quick flip. And then also, I think we bring some things to the table that will make for a seller, their firm better and really make their employee experience better. Like we know what good culture and retention looks like and how to make joy and flexibility a part of everyday employee experience. We know how to drive profitability through recurring pricing and monitoring margin on a weekly basis, and how that can make customers more profitable for us, and then we can share that with the team. We're growing, so your team's got an opportunity to grow with us and expand their careers. So I think it's like, hey, we're a good buyer because we're in this for the long haul. We've done it before, but then we're also a good home and a place for your team to be for a while. And then I think, yeah, what makes an attractive firm? There's a couple of things for me that really jumps out. I mean, first and foremost, it starts with the team, and so just like it's really hard to evaluate culture from the outside, but conversations with the owner, how do they talk about their team, retention of employees on the team, how long have they been around, what's the website, are there any LinkedIn or Glassdoor reviews, so kind of start there. Second for me, really important is I look at retention of customers, really revenue retention. Are the customers you had 3 years ago generally still with you? Because that'll point to either you're doing a good job of service or you've picked a good end market. Like we run into folks who serve really well, but they serve clients that are in a startup world maybe and go out of business every couple of years, and that's just like a tougher customer market to serve. Third is obviously kind of like financial metrics. Really, that comes down to wanting to see sort of after some sort of ownership compensation profitability in the kind of 15 to 20-25% range. Maybe it's above it, maybe it's a little bit below, but yeah, these are businesses when run well should have some healthy profit margins, and that's important to how we're going to acquire. And then lastly, and this is a big part of what's fun about carbon firms is just like, have they started the modernization journey? They don't have to be all the way there, but like, we have just kind of chosen not to want to take on the old firms that, do great work, but are just doing it with a different tech stack. We're fortunate to be grown enough where it's just like, I don't want to take on that work. It's doable. Other people are doing it, but, some level of modernization is important too.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Yeah. I think that's what
and I think what I was to say is like, people don't have to, you don't have to have everything today. You don't need to be a $2 million firm doing 25% growth and 25% margin and, Zapier everywhere in your firm. Like, you don't have to be perfect, but I think showing that you've kind of along the journey, profitability is going up, customer retention is getting better because maybe you started serving a different market. As a buyer, at the end of the day, I'm just buying people and a customer list really, and just trying to make sure that like we're buying something that's headed in the right direction. I don't want to buy something where we get in there and 3 people leave immediately, or we get in there and a bunch of customers go away. And these sort of financial metrics are just the ways we look at making sure that stuff's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's huge. I think too, just like the dispelling some of the anxiety around a merger. I'm sure from a buyer's perspective, if you have to take that team and those customers through the modernization, you kind of don't know what's going to be left at the end. And so if that potential selling firm has gone through that, I would imagine like the value in your eyes as a buyer goes up that, hey,
absolutely.
Kind of if I bring that same tech stack into my existing tech stack, I'm probably not going to lose as much in the shuffle or have as much pain. I think there's a risk there for the seller that they might not want to go through that journey ahead of time because they might feel the pain and lose team members and lose clients. But I think the reality is if they don't go through that pain, someone else is going to have to, and who better to go through that than the original owner, I think.
Yeah, and I mean it's a decision ultimately every seller gets to make is like, yeah, you're right, it totally impacts value, right? And it's like, do you want to sell your house today if the kitchen hasn't been touched for 20 years, or do you want to go through the work and the cost? Like, it's going to cost money to modernize the kitchen, but then you're going to make more on the back end when you sell it, because the next buyer like me, I'm willing to pay more. Will absolutely pay a higher multiple for somebody who's kind of already renovated that kitchen, because it's like, one, I don't have to take the risk of losing a bunch of customers through that, or I don't know what the right analogy would be, breaking the house,
finding mold in the walls or something.
Yeah, exactly, breaking a pipe. But then also like, it just allows the whole process to be smoother, and therefore like, we can focus on what really matters, which is like making sure the team gets integrated, feels like they have a new home. My other business doesn't fall apart because we're so focused on cleaning up sort of something messier. Some buyers, the sellers can, hey, it's a decision. Like, you may not want to go through that work, and that's fine. Just, there are still buyers for those old school firms, but the multiples are going to look different in the structure. I think with people like Carbon, this isn't a 5-year super scary journey. It's like, you can do this stuff, I think, relatively quickly, and there's people to help you on that journey, so you're not doing it by yourself. So I I love to buy things for cheaper, but I'd rather buy better and pay more for it. So I'd recommend most people like go on the modernization journey and then get paid more for it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a great segue into what we're building at Carbon with the practice marketplaces. We see the writing on the walls. We see where the industry is headed, and we've seen, in the midst of headwinds, we've seen just incredible, Cinderella stories too.
Mm-hmm.
Just acquisitions that have gone exceedingly well. We've seen, team members move from a more traditional firm that, get adopted by a progressive firm. You see their careers start to really flourish. And we want to help, firms that are ready to get that reward from what they've built from, decades, and get a financial reward, and for
Yeah.
their clients to have a home that outlives their, personal career as the owner, and for their staff to go somewhere. And so connecting, firms that want to sell with firms that want to buy is like part of our Carbon mission. And we love what System 6 is doing out there. I mean, you've made an acquisition, you've doubled the firm size, you're taking it even further, and that sort of adoption into, let me, not let me acquire in a team, let me acquire in clients, and I'll continue that legacy. I'll continue taking care of your staff. I'll continue taking care of your clients, and you can have, a rewarding retirement. Like, you
Yeah.
can feel good about what you've built.
And I think that like, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, someone started their accounting firm because they love taking care and servicing clients. And I think um, in some ways it's almost like an obligation, if you want to keep doing that, to get your firm to a place where it's easier for them to be taken care of long term. Like, I don't think anyone would argue like existing firm owner modernizes the firm, or new firm owner comes in, buys and modernizes the firm. Like, I think the first situation's easier for the clients and the team. So like, go do that work yourself and then get paid more for it on the way out.
Yeah, absolutely. Last thing I want to talk through is,
Yeah.
what's your advice to sellers of firms that, they aren't ready to exit? So one of the things that has been interesting in this marketplace is we've seen applications that's not like, they're not ready to retire. They want to
Yeah.
join a, more progressive team. They have a lot of, gas left in the tank. They just has realized, like, if I partner with a larger organization or just a more progressive organization, that's actually what I want. Is there space for them at System 6 or in other buyers? Like, how do you integrate someone that wants more out of their
Yeah.
career?
I think absolutely. I think, the first thing there is like, look, there's a ton of buyers with a ton of different situations. So, um, and even as someone who's selling and thinking about exiting, but like, what are you solving for? What is it you don't want to be doing that you're doing today? And what is it that you like want to spend more time on? And then make sure you're finding a buyer that's has a need for, can make that happen, right? Like, um, you might be running a small tax firm, you're doing a bunch of 1040s, and you want to get to doing a little bit more strategic tax work, business taxes, and like, well, then make sure you pay attention. You sell to a firm that's like doing a lot of business work, not just trying to increase their volume of individual returns. So I think it's really important to think just about like the fit of the buyer relative to what you're looking for. Um, Same thing. Are you like burned out of doing operations? Well, then you got to make sure you're selling to a firm that's like got their operations dialed, where you're not going to get thrown back into hiring because they've already got a hiring team. Um, and I think that's probably the most important thing, is just to know what is it you don't want to do. And then I think the other thing is like, just make sure you want to be an employee. Um,
Yeah.
Maybe not employee is not the right word, but like, you don't want to be the primary owner anymore. If you're selling into a bigger firm, like, you can absolutely still have, and there's a ton of different models out there. If we bought a tax practice and that owner wanted to stay on, they'd be the director of System 6 Tax, like, or maybe we'd even keep the brand name, but they're going to still have a ton of autonomy. Like, I can't tell them how to run a tax firm, but there's still some things ultimately that are going to be our decision, not theirs. And I think that's something, for people to sit with and make sure they're comfortable with that. Those are probably the two things that jump out the most. Know what you're looking for, and then make sure, it's not like you're going to go be a W-2 employee where you're getting, grinded to, at 90 hours a week by like a middle
Right.
career manager you hate. It's like you're still probably gonna have autonomy and control, but it's just gonna be a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great advice. Before we wrap up here, man, would love to know if you've got any other feedback, advice. You you've learned quite a bit in the last 3 years. Advice to run away or stay in it. All those things.
No, I mean, I think in general, like I said earlier, but look, accounting firms are people intensive firms. That does make them hard to run. Like, are we harder to run than like a software firm that's on autopilot? Like, yep. But I think it's just important to remember, like, accounting's been around for a long time for a reason. Like, we're providing a critical service to a large and growing market. Um, and if people can focus on, building a great firm for people to work, you're going to be able to attract talent. Is it harder to find talent? Yeah, absolutely. But you'll still, like, you can do it. So yeah, really just like encouragement that there is talent out there. If you build it the right way, your firm, you can retain them. Like, we're still struggling to find talent. Like, we got to build that recruiting muscle. But like, knock on wood, we feel like we've been able to retain good people because of the culture. And yeah, AI is coming. We got to make sure we're using it, and maybe one day it'll really change our business models. But that's like a 5-10 year problem. I think there's plenty of opportunity in the next couple of years. And I think also, acquisition or sale is an increasing thing that's happening right now. But also, something I have to remind myself too. Like, you don't have to go buy a bunch of firms. You don't have to sell right now. Like, at the end of the day, especially if you still have a good firm, that's an option in and of itself. Continue to run it. So, pay attention to this new motion that's happening, which is M&A. Educate yourself. Look at a few firms, but it's not easy. Integration is hard, so like, make sure you really want to do it as well.
Yeah, love it, love it. Chris, thanks for the time today, man. Really
Good.
appreciated chatting, talking background.
As you can tell, man, I had a ton of fun being on here because I'm still eating this pretzel, and it's literally been like 6 years, or way more than that, since I've had one. And I think I might be buying more pretzels again. So
I nearly finished mine while you're talking. That was
kudos
absolutely delicious.
to you for the best kind of podcast fun idea I've ever seen.
You got to have some fun.
I love it.
Cool. All right, man. Catch
Thank
you later.
you. See ya.
Chris.